Believe in the Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Bo Smolka, joined by my co-host, former Ravens tight end Daniel Wilcox. And we're going to be looking at the big AFC North Sunday night matchup coming up between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Before we do that, I want to remind you that all Believe in the Ravens podcasts are brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, game trends, and player news. And as your continued source for all sports wagering, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. BetOnline, always your fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, tennis, boxing, even golf. Head to betonline.ag and receive a 100% welcome bonus for your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, to receive your reward. Bet online, where the game starts. Daniel Wilcox, AFC North play starts this weekend for the Ravens, a big Sunday night football matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Both teams and the Cleveland Browns all come in at 2-2. Pittsburgh 1-3, but effectively it's down to a 13-game season for these teams. Baltimore and Cincinnati. There's no other way to cut it. Cincinnati embarrassed Baltimore twice last year. They clobbered them. Cincinnati came to Baltimore and won 41-17, scoring the final 28 points in that game after the Ravens had taken a lead early in the third quarter. And then, of course, they go to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati blew out the Ravens. The score ended up being 41-21. But it was a game in which the Ravens were missing so many players, including Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley. The Ravens were down to Josh Johnson as the starting quarterback, who had joined the team like 10 days earlier. But Jackson was hurt. Tyler Huntley had COVID. And so Johnson is thrown in to be the starting quarterback and actually played okay. The bigger issue in that game was the Ravens defense. No Marlon Humphrey, no Marcus Peters, no Deshaun Elliott. A couple other defensive backs got hurt during that game. The Ravens ended up playing extended stretches of that game with basically practice squad cornerbacks on the field, and Joe Burrow just ate them alive. Burrow finished with 525 passing yards, the most ever allowed by the Ravens. And truth be told, he stuck a 50-yard pass to Joe Mixon with about 2 minutes left when they were already up 21. And I know the Ravens were not appreciative of that. A little stat padding going on, maybe a little revenge or whatever you want to call it. But I don't think the Ravens have forgotten that they threw a 50-yard pass up by 20 with 2 minutes left. But that doesn't matter. The Bengals crushed the Ravens twice last year. There's no other way to put it. So let's start talking about this game. And we often talk about the Ravens offense first, but I want to talk about the Ravens defense first, because I think that's where the key to this game is. And I just mentioned it. Joe Burrow destroyed the Ravens defense last year twice. They've got an amazingly deep and strong group of receivers. Jamar Chase, offensive rookie of the year last year. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Everyone in Baltimore remembers Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is the one that caught the 49-yard touchdown pass from Andy Dalton on New Year's Eve that knocked the Ravens out of the playoffs in 2017. He has been a Ravens killer over the years. And now they also have tight end Hayden Hurst, who you might recall was actually drafted by the Ravens before Lamar Jackson and before Mark Andrews, for that matter. It is a deep group. And so for this Ravens team, Daniel Wilcox, that got shredded by this Bengals offense last year, how do they go about defending that group of wide receivers?
Man, I tell you what, Bo, it's going to be a good old-fashioned grudge match. And I think when it comes down to these receivers, they are explosive. Every last one of them explosive. You kind of pick your poison, who you want to beat you, but you definitely got to take out, Chase. Chase is to me, the big hitter. He's the one that kind of sets the tone for the whole group. Been offensive MVP last year. I mean, he came in smoking hot. One of the most dynamic receivers I've seen in a long time since Randy Moss. And, in his first season playing. And it's really important to me that they keep everything in front of them. So to me, it's going to be a big week of cover 4 or maybe cover 6. Cover 6 is quarter halves. So you play quarters on one side, you have 2 deep safeties. And then on the other side, you play cover 2. You have 1 deep safety and a corner that sits in the flats. That corner that sits in the flat, he usually has to redirect the number 1 receiver. So he has to get his hands on him to slow him down so that you don't get the pocket shot in the hole and the safety have time to get over top and protect your deep ball on that side of the field. So I think you need to see a lot of that, and then a lot of cover 4. We have all both corners deep, both safeties deep, and then a zone underneath everything else. But those guys don't let anything blow by them. That way we don't give up the deep ball this week, and we keep everything in front and come up and make tackles. I feel like our corners are some of the best tackling corners in the league. Let's put it on display this week and let them come up and make some plays. And our safeties, they're pretty good too. Some big guys back there at the safety spot that could run, cover, and hit. And that gives the underneath coverage a chance to really rush the passer, kind of make it a little rough on Burrow. He's already been sacked 16 times this year already, which I think is a really good thing and a good thing for us. I mean, the O-line is not, clicking on all cylinders, and we may be able to take advantage of that and get to Burrow quite a bit. If we can get to him, ruffle his feathers a little bit, put that press on him to make him make a couple of throws, inadvertent throws, and we might come up with a couple of more interceptions this week. I think we're leading the whole league right now in interceptions too, Bo, if I remember correctly. But the defense has definitely been getting their turnovers the way they normally do, and I love seeing that. I'm glad Baltimore is back. The defense is definitely coming back. Unfortunately, they're giving up more pass yards than any other freaking defense in the whole league. So we got to figure that out. I think by going to cover 4 or cover 6, it'll definitely help them keep these guys in front and maybe not give up that deep ball so often.
Marlon Humphrey, we talked to Marlon Humphrey at practice on Wednesday, and he said, look, he owned it. He said, we're the 32nd ranked pass defense in the league, and that is unacceptable. And he said he was kind of joking. He said, look, we sit in the cafeteria and they've got NFL Network on the cafeteria TVs, and these graphics come up showing us as 32nd in the league. And he said the cafeteria can be a humbling place when you look there and you see that. But that's, he said, the numbers don't lie. That was Marlon Humphrey talking yesterday about the pass defense being 32nd in the league. They're giving up yards. You mentioned they're getting turnovers. They've got 9 interceptions already. They're getting interceptions. They're getting turnovers. They're giving up a lot of yardage. I think getting turnovers would be key. And the other thing that's big that you mentioned is tackling. Yeah. Jamar Chase had an 82-yard touchdown against the Ravens last year in Baltimore on what was about a 5-yard pass play. But he broke through a tackle of Marlon Humphrey, and Deshaun Elliott slipped through that tackle. Chuck Clark has a chance and can't get him. When those 3 miss, he's gone. 82 yards on what was a ball through the air, about 5 or 7 yards. So tackling those guys when they make the catch is going to be very important. And the other thing that's going to be very interesting to see is, one, communication. We've already seen several times this year where the Ravens defensive secondary has just miscommunicated and left somebody wide open. And if that's happened, that is going to be a big problem. It even happened against Buffalo last week. Excuse me. And they got away with it because Stephon Diggs was left wide open in the end zone on a play. They didn't score, but after the play, we saw Humphrey, Hamilton, Peters, and Williams all kind of staring at each other like there was clearly something went wrong. And they can't afford that. They just can't afford that to keep happening. And Marlon Humphrey yesterday said he put the onus on the players. I know Mike McDonald, the new defensive coordinator, is taking some shots in this town because the defense is ranked last in the league again in pass defense. And Humphrey said, when you watch that film, the calls are there. The calls are good calls. It's the players that aren't executing. And so Humphrey owned it, but this is a huge challenge for them. I think a big part of this game will be, as you just mentioned, getting pressure on Joe Burrow. You mentioned it. He's been sacked 16 times. It's the second most in the league. This Ravens pass pressure has not been a factor as much as they would like it to be. Can Odafe Owe get there this week? Can Jason Pierre-Paul make an impact? Can one of the inside guys like Justin Madubuike make an impact? Those are decisions those are going to be, I think, key factors in this game in trying to slow down that passing game, because if Joe Burrow gets time, I think the Ravens are in big trouble. Now they didn't have Marcus Peters last year in either game, so that changes a lot about what the Ravens do defensively in the secondary. It's just a much better defense with him on the field. But I think Burrow getting time will be the problem. And the other thing is the Ravens haven't quite figured out who their third Brandon Stevens is basically playing as the slot corner for the most part. Well, you've got three, what Marlon Humphrey called basically three wide receiver ones on this team in Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. So you better be prepared to cover all three of them. And you said whether it's adding a safety, whether it's playing deep and keeping them in front of you or whatever, and then tackling. Absolutely. But I think the Ravens will need to get a couple turnovers, and they are going to absolutely need to get pressure on Burrow. They cannot be giving 41 points a game again and expect to win. All right, quickly, let's look at this Ravens offense, because there's a couple notable things that are going to possibly change the complexion of this game, and that is injuries. Rashod Bateman left the Buffalo game with what John Harbaugh called a mid-foot injury. He says Rashod Bateman keeps telling him he is day to day, for whatever that's worth. Bateman did not practice on Wednesday. John Harbaugh said there's a chance he plays on Sunday. Justice Hill, who has been the Ravens' most effective running back, he left the Bills game. We saw him kind of pull up and grab his hamstring at the end of that game. He's got a hamstring injury. I don't think he's going to play. John Harbaugh had said they're fortunate it was not a serious injury. They don't think it'll be a long-term thing, but I don't think he's playing this week either. So you've got Rashod Bateman maybe out, Justice Hill probably out. Two of your better offensive players so far this year. If you're the Bengals and Rashod Bateman is not on the field, I just see them doubling Mark Andrews and just pouring everyone else in the box and trying to make them so. If you're the Ravens and you don't have Rashod Bateman, Daniel Wilcox, how is your passing game changing, and who do you expect to step up in Bateman's place?
All you have is Duvernay, so Duvernay is gonna have to step in and probably move positions this week to go to that wide receiver one spot and take some of that deep threat. We need somebody to blow the top off the ball. So having Duvernay and Bateman on the field, of course, benefits Lamar tremendously, especially the way we run the ball, right? So when you don't have Bateman on the team, you put your best corner on Duvernay, right? Try to eliminate him with your best corner. And then you double Mark Andrews, like you said, with a linebacker or someone on the line of scrimmage that's going to bump him, hold him up, put pressure on him, and then have a safety or something like, have a safety come down and pick him up, and that way he always got somebody on him, and you disrupting his route, you disrupting the timing of Lamar Jackson trying to get the ball to him, and it slows things down tremendously. It may be a good opportunity for Isaiah Likely to kind of step up and really show some, some of his skills, because he's yet to have that breakout game as a rookie.
That's right.
And when you look at this thing, Bo, like this could be a really big week for the Ravens. If they really put this thing together and really come out steamrolling and do things the right way, or it could be a really, really bad week for the Ravens, starting off the second quarter of the season with a loss. I definitely think Cincinnati could beat us this year. It's not a thing that we haven't seen them do. They beat us twice last year, but we was wounded last year. This year we're a lot better off than we were last year, and I like to see us put together a solid game against them. And if Ronnie Stanley is back, I think that helps us out a lot, but I hate to see him go against this Hickerson kid, his first week back. I think Hickerson already got about 2.5, 3 sacks. And, Stanley, to me, I seen him in person, when I was up there, scouting with the Ravens, and he was phenomenal, man. He's just such an athletic guy. When you look at your entire team, you think Lamar Jackson is the best player on your team, and the camp that he had, he was number one on almost everybody's list. Like, he had such a great camp, man. So it's kind of great to see him kind of working himself back to get out there on the field, but you hope that he's 100% healthy, because he's going against a stud this week, so he's going to definitely get tested if he's out there.
The Ravens have to come up with some other options at wide receiver, and this has been a question for this team since May or April, really, when they didn't draft any wide receivers. Who else are you bringing? Do you have enough offensive weapons? It's been a constant story, a constant question all summer. Eric DeCosta has said, we trust our wide receivers. We like our wide receivers. We like who we have. But if they don't have Bateman, that changes things. And they signed DeMarcus Robinson, who's kind of a B-level free agent signing. He was not the marquee signing. Right. James Prochet, your guy James Prochet, hasn't been on the field a whole lot. Tylan Wallace has not been on the field a whole lot. One of those guys is probably going to play a lot more than they have if Bateman can't go. And as you said, it might be a case of where Isaiah Likely becomes a bigger factor. And as we said, Isaiah Likely dominated the training camp. He was, to my mind, the best player in training camp, but it has yet to translate in games, a couple quiet games. Mark Andrews this past week was held to 2 catches for 15 yards. And I asked Lamar Jackson on Wednesday, what did they do with Andrews to shut him down? Because he has not been shut down like that in a long, long time. And Jackson said, well, they did a lot of what you said. They basically passed off a linebacker to a safety, and they doubled him, and They always made sure they passed him off to someone, and there was always someone with Andrews everywhere, sometimes two people. And I think that's going to be continue to be I mean, if you're Mark Andrews, you almost have to expect to be doubled.
Right.
Because if you're a defensive team, the first thing you do with this team is say, all right, where's Andrews? We got to figure out to stop Andrews, and that's where it starts. You mentioned Ronnie Stanley. Ronnie Stanley, I think, is going to play this week. I mean, I thought he might play last week. He practiced fully, did not play. He's practiced fully again this week. And obviously, that would be a major addition to this team. Where will he be? He has said he's not going to play till he feels fully ready to play. So if he's out there, I can only assume he thinks he's fully ready to play. But you mentioned it's a tough task. Yeah. Opposite him will be Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals, who had 14 sacks last year. He had 2.5 against the Jets. He is a big, strong edge rusher that's going to give Stanley, or if it's not Stanley, Daniel Falele, a lot of problems. So it would be very big for them to get Ronnie Stanley back. One other noteworthy thing about the Ravens this week. Well, let's first talk about the running game. And I'll say as introducing this, one noteworthy thing from practice on Wednesday is Gus Edwards got back on the field. First practice since he tore his ACL last September. He is still on the reserve PUP list. He won't play this week, I can't imagine. But this starts a window of 21 days after which in that window, he must either be added to the active roster, or if they feel he's not ready, he just he stays on injured reserve, but he's out for the whole year, and that's that. Just watching him in the 15 minutes or so we were allowed to watch yesterday, I thought he looked pretty good for his first practice in a year. So I expect he will be activated sometime in the next 3 weeks, but I don't think it'll be for this week. Right. So with Justice Hill dealing with his hamstring injury, this running game has to find someone to take it over. Is it going to be Dobbins? I hope so, but he has not shown that burst just yet. Justice Hill is averaging over 6 yards a carry, twice as much as any other running back they have, Dobbins or Kenyon Drake or Mike Davis. Those guys are all under 3 or 2 yards a carry rushing the ball. So someone else has to find that running game. And because, Daniel Wilcox, I mean, this team, sure, this team operates when the running game is working. And that drives the passing game, and it drives Lamar Jackson's RPO game, and it drives everything they do, is having an effective running game. So with Justice Hill hurt, it's funny, Justice Hill went from being a bubble player in August to being really the key of this running game so far. But right. It's going to be up to J.K. Dobbins, I think, to really start to show what J.K. Dobbins is. If he is, I mean, we haven't yet seen the pre-injury J.K. Dobbins, and this would be a really good week to do it. When you watch him, I mean, you said Dobbins was tentative in the first game. Did you see more from him last game? Do you think he can make that step this week? Or I don't know, as a running back, do you think he'll get back to where he was?
Absolutely. I mean, Willis McGahee is a prime example of that. Mm-hmm. He blew everything out on his knee. He came back probably better than ever. I think Dobbins is going to be phenomenal. I really think they're rationing his snaps. I think they're going to do the same thing with Stanley. Maybe, on average, every game you play about 60 plays on offense, 60 plays on defense. That's a good balanced game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's not balanced, you might run 80 plays on offense or 75. But I think the first game when they played Dobbins, they really just gave him limited snaps, like 25 snaps. You're going to give him 25 snaps. Next week, we're going to give him about 40, see how he feels. Next week, we'll give him more like 50 or 60, see how he feels. But they're not trying to put him in there for every snap right now. So this week, I think, will be a better week of seeing Dobbins actually run the ball. He's had 2 or 3 weeks already to kind of prepare, to get elevated, to get banged on, to get hit on, to get the knee tested. Hey, I feel really good about Dobbins this week. I think he's going to have a great game. I could see a lot of heavy runs going his way this week. I think Mike Davis will come in and play some as well for us, but Dobbins is definitely going to be the key to this game, whether or not he runs the ball well or not. They have to respect the run game by Dobbins in order for Lamar to be able to do the RPO, to be able to pull it and run it himself. So if we can get Dobbins rolling, then it may be really, really, really good opportunity for us this year. I think giving the ball to Patrick Ricard in short yardage situation might not be a bad idea either. Use the big guy, use big boy. If you got him, use him. Give him the rock and see what he does with it. And it's going to be an interesting week, Bo. The more I look at this game, it's going to be a very exciting game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, no more than like 28, 30 points. But I think the defense has something to prove. and I think the defense is going to come to play. And I think on the offense, Lamar got something to prove every single week. Lamar want the whole world to know why, he should get paid the money that he should be getting paid. And I think this is going to be an excellent season for the Ravens overall. But this game is the key game to kind of jump off everything. It's a conference game. It's against the Bengals. They hate us. They always talking about who they, and we were like, we they, so we coming at them. So it's one of those things, baby. So I would love to see JK get off this week and Lamar Jackson, have another 100-yard rushing game. Dobbins with 100 yards rushing, and then getting the ball to Mark Andrews the way we have to. And we'll find different ways to get Mark Andrews the ball. He can get tight end screens and stuff like that as well. He can put him out wide and throw the ball to him as well. And you can isolate him one-on-one with a backside backside corner easily. So you just have to play it smart and see what happens. I think they even ran a tunnel screen with him the other day. So I'm excited about it.
I think Monday, if the Ravens succeed in this game, I think Monday we will be talking about some player that emerged and was a star of this game that isn't named Mark Andrews or J.K. Dobbins. I think maybe it'll be James Prochet, maybe Patrick Ricard. Maybe it will be Demarcus Robinson, but someone else is going. I think Lamar Jackson will, of course, be the key to the game. And what the Ravens want to do more than anything is have about 7, 8, 9-minute drives that leave Joe Burrow on the sideline with his helmet in his hand and Ja'Marr Chase standing there watching as the Ravens go down the field. They would love to shorten the game to X number of possessions, ball control offense, but that's going to involve running the ball, converting third downs, where Mark Andrews is his favorite target to do that. But I agree with you. I think Patrick Ricard is kind of one of these subtle guys that could have a big hand in this game. I mean, he's a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. And when you're 300 pounds and he turns a corner, 300 pounds squared up, no cornerback wants to deal with Patrick Ricard in space. So on right? third and three, swing pass to Patrick Ricard might be a way to move the chain. So it will be interesting to see which one of these guys emerges and who we're talking about on Monday. And if none of them do, then I think we're probably talking about a loss. Now, the Ravens do very, very well in primetime. I will say that Lamar Jackson relishes the moment, no doubt about it. On Sunday Night Football, John Harbaugh's teams are 7-1 at home, and overall at home in primetime, John Harbaugh's teams are 18-2. Wow. M&T Bank Stadium will be rocking on Sunday night. As we said, it's the first AFC North game of the year, and with everybody at 2-2, other than the Pittsburgh Steelers are 1-3, it's now a 13-game season, and the Ravens have a chance to basically take over first place in the division and have a win in hand over Cincinnati. If they lose, now they've suddenly lost 3 out of 4, and they've lost 2 in a row, and they've lost 3 straight at home, and you wonder if cracks will appear. But I think it's going to be a pivotal game for this season. All right, Daniel Wilcox, let's do predictions. I'm just curious, when we finish this game on Sunday night, what is the score?
Cincinnati is averaging about 22 points a game right now, so I'm gonna say Cincinnati's gonna have 21. The Ravens are averaging right now about 29 points a game. I'm gonna say the Ravens are gonna have 24. So I think the Ravens are gonna win this game 24-21 at home. We have lost, the last 2 home games, so we definitely got to get some get back because of that. We don't lose at home. We represent the bank always. And we all about Be More. So Be More is, it has a little bit of grit to it. A lot of class to it. It's Charm City. It's time for us to be very charming this week and go win this game 24-21.
I predict the Bengals are going to win 31-27. And so one of us is going to be wrong, and I'm usually wrong, so you should probably feel pretty good about yourself here. But I'm usually
wrong too, Bo.
You can say the Ravens are home, which they are, and they have all these strengths. I just don't think the Ravens match up well with this Cincinnati team. I just think these receivers are going to be a problem. And the Ravens secondary, they're 32nd, and part of that is giving up a couple big pass plays. But in a game like this, it only takes one of those miscommunications or missing a tackle, and Ja'Marr Chase is gone. And I don't like the matchup. I think the Ravens might be as good as the Bengals, but talent, you go top to bottom when everyone's healthy. I also think the Bateman and Hill injuries are significant. They don't have them. So I'm going to go Bengals 31, Ravens 27. It's going to be a really, really fun night of football. National television. The Ravens are wearing their all black uniforms, which Justin Tucker has told me is his favorite uniform in all of sports. So they are going to be fired up for that game. Big coming up.
I'm going 24-21, Bo. I believe the Ravens are going to come out and they're going to beat up on Cincinnati. I think they're going to come out and try to be physical against this team and not let these receivers just have a track meet on them this game. I really believe in my heart that we're going to get back to Baltimore Raven football, and we're going to put hands on these guys every single play and make these guys have the worst day they've ever had at M&T Bank.
That we'll see. That's I think has to be the framework. Get physical, make them uncomfortable, make Burrow uncomfortable, make the receivers uncomfortable, clobber Chase coming across the middle one play or whatever. It wouldn't surprise me to see them to take the penalty take the penalty, establish the tempo, and you're in our house and you're gonna pay for it. I can totally see that playing out early in the game. You take the penalty and you kind of dictate the parameters of the game from that point.
Absolutely.
All right, it's going to be a good one. Ravens and Bengals Sunday night football at M&T Bank Stadium, and we'll be back Monday to wrap it up and see who did emerge for the Ravens, which one of the two of us was correct on the prediction. We will see. That's Ravens Bengals Sunday night. Thank you for listening to Believe in the Ravens, presented by Bet Online.